Так понятно. Жика. А, так он так снимаешь, что ли? Ладно, замечательно, здорово просто. Ну, наоборот, значит, так нет, так о тебе они говорят. Вот мне, ну, наоборот. Ага. Нет, ну наоборот. Да, наоборот. Ну да, так вот это я говорю. А, понятно. Да, нет, да, ну вот это есть. Да, да, наоборот. Типа того, да. Ну вот это и было. Наоборот, так нет, то есть он о себе так думал, о себе, да. Да наоборот. Ну вот надо, да. Да наоборот, и ничего не будет. Да наоборот, потому что да. Ну вот это да. Вот наоборот. Так наоборот. Нет. Ой, ты, нет. Да наоборот. Ну наоборот, значит, наоборот. Вот это и есть. Да. Ты издеваешься, что ли? Да. Вот наоборот. Да иди. Нормальная она, значит, нурма. Нурма, да. Ну, да, наоборот. Да, наоборот. Наоборот. Да, наоборот, да. Ну, наоборот, значит, да. Да, да, есть на самом деле. Да. Ну, не сейчас, значит. Да. Что это все долгая очень система твоя. Ладно, все. Что я, собственно, хотел-то? Ну да, ну наоборот, да, да. Ну надо, то есть, наоборот, наоборот, так не, на себя она смотрит просто, да, нет. Вот наоборот, значит, да. Ну да, ну вот это и есть там самое. Да наоборот, да, вот это и есть там самое, да. Да наоборот, да. Да наоборот, да. Ну нет, ну ну вот это и есть. Да наоборот, да. Ну, да, да наоборот, да наоборот, наоборот, ну вот наоборот, значит, да, наоборот. Вот это он имеет в виду. Да наоборот. Да наоборот. Наоборот, дурак, что ли, зачем пишешь ты себе? Ну, наоборот, значит, ну ладно. Да наоборот, да. Да наоборот, он написал, я знаю, да. Ну, наоборот, ну, да, так это порно звезда, что ли. Ну, ну, да, наоборот, да. Да наоборот, да. Да, вот она понимает. Да, добавляться. Да. Ага, да, наоборот, да, наоборот, да. Наоборот. Да, наоборот. Да, наоборот, она тебе говорила, да. Наоборот, или безработный. Ну вот это и было с вами. Наоборот, так и да. Да наоборот. Наоборот, так не радуешь, что ты. Да наоборот, только да. Ну нет, так мы вещи. Да. Ладно.
You want a catchy melody? I got you. This video is sponsored by the piano learning app Scoof. As somebody who makes videos on the internet about music theory, I've been told countless times in the comment section that you don't need any music theory. You don't need to know any music theory to play music, to write music. And that is true. You don't actually need to know any music theory to write a song, to play music. You could even go up to a piano and not know what the notes are called and string them together in an order that you like, and you've written the song there without knowing any music theory at all. But I think anybody who's learned some music theory will agree when I say that even knowing just some basic theory concepts can go a massive way to expanding your potential as a musician, particularly when it comes to communicating your ideas to other musicians. Knowing some fundamental music theory concepts can massively help there. But the thing is, you don't need to know all of music theory to do that. You only need to know some of it, some of the more important aspects of it. You don't need to get bogged down in microtonality and the harmonic spectrum when all you're trying to do is communicate a chord progression. So today what I want to do is I want to rank music theory concepts by their importance. I want to go from the need to know stuff to the nice to know stuff. And I thought a good format to do that in would be the tier list, the common thing on YouTube where you have the bottom tier, F, the least important stuff, the least important music theory concepts. And then the top tier, S, super, the most important, the most fundamental things that you should know about theory. And what we're going to do, we're going to go through various theory concepts and place them on this list on how important they are. So let's start with one of the most fundamental things in music theory, something so basic and rudimental that you probably don't even think about it as music theory. And that's knowing the names of the notes, being able to identify on your instrument, this is an A, this is a B flat, this is a C sharp. If you don't know the names of the notes, then you're going to have a pretty hard time doing anything more advanced like chords or scales. So
Ну ладно. Ну не надо. Ладно.
So let's put note names up at the top, the most important thing to know in music theory, and something that pretty much everyone is going to know, even those who claim that you don't need theory. So we've talked about note names, but now let's talk about chords, notes played together, and more precisely, triads, 3-note chords. So we're talking about major chords, minor chords, and also augmented chords and diminished chords. And you can even extend this to sus2 and sus4. And I think most people will agree that triads, particularly major and minor chords, are very fundamental to playing music. If you want to perform any song, or even write your own song, you're going to need to know some essential chord types. This is going to go up there in the S tier as well. One of the most important things to know is triads. But let's talk about some chord types that maybe are slightly less important. What about seventh chords? So seventh chords are still very common and very important, and they're also very useful, but they're not as common as triads. And in a way, you can sort of substitute a seventh chord for a triad. So for example, if a song asked you to play C7, if C7 was in a song and you didn't know it, you could just play C major instead, and you could still do a fairly good version of that song. So for that reason, I'm going to...
Okay, every time Asus makes a new ROG phone, that pretty much becomes the fastest Android at that given point in time. It's almost a tradition at this point, but it becomes the fastest Android at that given point in time. It's almost a tradition at this point, but I've never been as impressed as I am with their latest version, the ROG Phone 3. It was definitely off to a good start. This is probably not the most efficient way to package a phone, but from the consumer perspective, this gets you pretty excited. So there's 2 main compartments. On the left is accessories. The first thing being the Aeroactive Cooler 3, which is an optional add-on that adds a whole load of stuff which I'm going to get to. Underneath that is the case, and not a standard clear TPU case like you normally get with a phone. It's still plastic, but designed for better grip and cooling. There's a 30-watt hypercharger, a USB-C to headphone jack adapter, and a braided USB cable with a few rubber pieces to keep the phone's ports sealed up. Okay, let's get onto the phone, which is nestled into the second compartment.
Hey, violin lovers! Do you want a free download? Then hurry. because I am giving away only 100 free copies of the exciting track Asturias for...
I'm going to be really honest with you. My first impression of the phone itself, after all of that incredible packaging, was... oh, it fits in an identical footprint to the last model, but now has a camera button. It still has the same substantial borders around the display, which does allow for backwards compatibility with old accessories, but the design sticks out a little more than it did last year, and not in a good way. And to be really honest, I think in trying to make the design cleaner, it's lost its identity a little bit. It's still not clean, but now it doesn't have that aggressive look either. The slanted buttons have become rounded buttons, and it went from having these sharp, glowing lines all over the phone to just having one main soft line, which I think the phone would look better without. But here's the thing, if you're going to look past these, it's only as I've started to sort of use the phone properly over the last month that I've come to the conclusion that this is an absolutely massive upgrade. And I say upgrade because it seems like the strategy here was to basically take last year's ROG Phone 2 and make every possible aspect of it better. The display has gone from 120 Hz to 144 Hz. The RAM has gone from 12 GB to 16. The storage speed, UFS 3.0 to UFS 3.1. The camera from 4K to 8K. The heat for cooling everything down is 6 times larger. That's actually what you're looking at through the window here. 6 times. Even that aeroactive cooler, which is made to cool both your phone and your fingers while bringing back the headphone jack, well, this new version here cools everything 4 degrees more, whilst also doubling as a kickstand right out the box. And I've only covered like 30% of this list. The point is that it's everything that you can't see. That's what they've improved. And if you're enjoying this video, by the way, a sub to the channel would be incredible. Okay, so as an example, one of the things that they've improved is the speakers, and the result is hands down the best audio you can get on a smartphone. So the main pain point you'll have noticed with smartphone speakers is that they underrepresent bass, because to get thumping bass you have to shift large volumes of air, and the insides of smartphones just don't have the space to do that. So what Asus has done here is created a software solution that detects when bass is present and then adds artificially extra bass on top of that. They overcompensate on bass because they know that smartphones underrepresent it. So when you combine this with the haptics on the phone, the vibration engine, using the ROG phone is like a sensory experience. And Asus knows it. They've integrated subtle sounds and vibrations into all the actions you do on the phone, just to kind of flex a little, just to constantly remind you that you're using this seriously capable bit of kit. But okay, let's talk about the most important aspect of this, gaming. There's been this long debate about whether or not we actually need a gaming phone, and I've actually even gone on the record 2 years ago to say no, because unlike with a computer where you could pick a graphics card that maximizes performance, with a gaming phone you were getting the exact same chip, and therefore gaming performance, as you were with most other flagship phones, only that you were getting it in a body that was bulky with a camera that sucked. But as the ROG Phone 2 came out, and I started seeing some really cool stuff from Red Magic as well, my opinion changed a little bit. And now that I've been spending time with the next generation of gaming phones, it's changed a little bit more, for a few reasons. First of all, the camera is actually quite good. And I'm not saying that it's good relative to gaming phones. That would be a pretty low benchmark. It's actually just pretty good. It definitely doesn't take the best selfies, but as far as main camera is concerned, I never felt limited by it. Photos are surprisingly detailed, and you can actually take 8K video at 30 frames per second with stabilization. That might be a world first. Early gaming phones had all these pretty garish, heavy software skins, but here you could just select classic when you're setting it up, and you're good to go. It looks simple, it looks clean. So I guess what I'm saying is that the compromises from going for a gaming phone have fallen. Like, the cameras between these ROG phones have improved far faster than the cameras of, let's say, the top-end Samsung Galaxy phones. Even though those are better, the gap feels narrower. And at the same time, the benefits of owning a gaming phone have become clearer. The ROG Phone 3 is more powerful than any other Android phone out there. It's the first phone in the world with a Snapdragon 865 Plus chip, which adds another 10% on top of the already flagship 865. And cooling has gotten really good. As well as that heatsink that you see in this window here, there's an air vent, there's a redesigned vapor chamber, and a graphite film on the inside. Which all sounds very extra, but the numbers speak for themselves. It does a good job of keeping its temperatures low, and therefore keeping its performance high. battery capacities have become enormous on these gaming phones. The first ROG had a 4,000 mAh cell. This has a 6,000 mAh cell. That means it does take longer to charge to 100% than some other phones, but it also means that some days I would just take it off when it's on 60, because I know it's still going to last the whole day. The battery is so big here that it doubles as a power bank to charge your other tech. And gaming phones have always had these gaming features, but I feel like over the last few years, they've slowly but surely become more user-centric. I'm still not a fan of these capacitive shoulder buttons, having used the physical ones on that Black Shark phone, but it's kind of amazing that now, mid-game, I can tap one button and auto-save the last 30 seconds of gameplay footage. I can open up an internet search to quickly look something up while the game is still running. I can create macros, one command that triggers a whole set of responses, like pressing one button to actually shoot a gun and reload it automatically. And I guess more important than any of that is really that we've now got more games to play. Over the last few years, COD Mobile, PUBG, Fortnite have just exploded. And speaking from personal experience, since I've started playing COD Mobile, because of that social element, because I'm competing with friends, there's definitely been more of an incentive to improve. At least for me, the prospect of having a tool that could potentially help me game better has become more enticing. Because, let's face it, I really need the help. So what I'm trying to say with all this is that I feel like gaming smartphones have transitioned a little bit from this ultra niche category to a still niche but definitely much wider net. But there has still been one thing on my mind this whole time. See, there are plenty of gaming features that have been added to this phone, like the 6,000 mAh battery, like the incredible speakers, which elevate the whole phone experience. But I can't ever feel like the two crown jewels of this phone, this super high-end overclocked chipset and this 144Hz display, you rarely get to take full advantage of them, just because of the very nature of how smartphone games are made. When you play games on a PC, frame rates are usually unlocked. That basically means the more powerful your machine is, the higher the frame rate you can run a game at. But on Android, most developers lock their frame rates, I guess to try and create a consistent experience across different devices. But that means that even though the screen can refresh 144 times per second, when you're playing a game like COD Mobile, you're still getting the exact same 60 that you would on a mid-range phone. And as a result, you're also not really taking advantage of this extra power the phone has. So what I think we really need to see is either a technology that can sort of override the frame rate set by the developers to allow for higher refresh rate gaming, or maybe even a technology that can just insert frames. We've seen a few phones this year using something called MEMC, which basically takes normal video, shot at, let's say, 30 frames per second, and then inserts extra frames in it to make it look like a 120 FPS video. And if this tech could be improved to automatically work on all games, I feel like that would be a turning point. Credit where due, the phone does guide you towards games that support its various features, but this just isn't how people search for games. I'm not going to play a game just because it supports high refresh rate. I want to be able to play the game because I want to play the game, and just trust the fact that it will support high refresh rate. Okay, a couple of final things to bear in mind. The phone doesn't have a headphone jack, it doesn't have wireless charging, and it also doesn't support micro SD cards. Although, it does go up to 512 gigs internally, so you'd probably be alright there. And we do have an in-display fingerprint scanner, which works fine, but for some reason the screen kind of flickers while I've been using it. So anyways, to bring this all together, I've never been more tempted to own a gaming phone. It feels like the company has finally understood that chances are you're not going to have one phone for gaming and one phone for taking photos, so your gaming phone has to be your everything phone. And this is, more or less, that, as long as you can put up with a design that is less slick than you could get. Okay, thank you so much for watching. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.
И что мы скажем маме?
Что я дочитала книгу, сделала все уроки, послушала Моцарта.
А про это?
Что я вся в папу. Да ладно, они смываются.
Нитарик Джуниор – это музыка, книги, безлимитные мессенджеры, учебники и тату-наклейки в подарок.
Okay, you might remember the ROG Phone 3. It was the battery life champion. It had literally the best speakers on a mobile device. It was my gaming smartphone of the year, and this close to being my overall smartphone of the year. So, you could probably imagine that when Asus came out and said, we've got an ROG Phone 5, an ROG Phone 5 Pro, and an ROG Phone 5 Ultimate, which I will get to, I practically wet myself with excitement. Not like that. So this is how it was packaged. I wouldn't say it's hugely exciting, given how some of their last phones were presented, but it is still way above 2021 standards. It comes with a sticker pack, a classic ROG style, not very protective but still stylized case, and not just a charger, but a much faster charger than last year, at 65 watts. You gotta respect that decision. It would have been very easy now that Samsung and Apple aren't giving one to just say, we care about the environment too, and then just drop it. But they didn't. And we've also got a pretty nice braided USB-C cable, and the phone. And what you're seeing right now was also the very first time that I'd seen this thing. I hadn't had any leaks, I hadn't had a briefing, I was going in blind. That was pretty much my first impression. Bearing in mind that these are the phones we came from, and that this is the kind of design quality we've experienced in 2021, I was just kind of expecting a little bit more. Like maybe a design that took last year's further to demonstrate how it's now gotten more powerful. Maybe chrome accents to give it some class. Or maybe even just a matte finish, given how much time people are going to spend gripping this thing. It's just a little plain. And I don't mind plain. But if that's what they were going for, then there are many phones out there with better execution of this concept. Also, this whole pixel art logo on the back, it is configurable, and it's never going to be a negative to have an option like that. But I am just kind of surprised that they're still doing this 4 generations in. Like, I totally get having LEDs in a PC case. When I built my own PC 7 or so years ago, I loaded that thing up. But there's a distinct difference between a computer that's powered through the mains and a mobile, where battery life is a precious resource. Let alone the simple fact that what proportion of time on your phone are you looking at the back? And even when you are looking at the back, isn't your hand just gonna cover it? To be clear, I don't hate this design. It feels great, it's hand-friendly, and the materials are high-end. I'm just slightly disappointed by how remarkably okay it looks, given how much of an impression some of their past phones made on me. But then I started using it, and it became very clear that actually, this phone is anything but just okay. It takes the already extreme aspects of last year's ROG Phone 3, and it cranks that lever as far as it can possibly go with current technology, with just one important caveat. So, one of the first things you'll feel when you start using this phone is that they care. As well as keeping the charger while others dropped it, this still has a headphone jack with a high-end DAC to support it, in a year where it's almost a given that a flagship phone won't have that. And they've put so much thought into the software. Like this is the setup screen, complete with its own setup screen soundtrack. They've got this augmented reality experience, where you can see the comic on the retail box come to life when viewed through the phone. They let you choose whether you want the crazy gamer aesthetic or something much more minimal. It is shockingly easy to find and apply themes, and they completely change how the phone looks. And it's probably not a coincidence how much the standby key on this phone sounds like the menus in Pokemon games. Like, this is Pokemon. This is the ROG phone. Point is, with this phone you're getting a device that feels like it was meticulously designed. One that feels like it was made with you at the front and center. And it is backed by a serious spec sheet. A 144Hz AMOLED Gorilla Glass Victus display with about twice the touch responsiveness of any other flagship. A Snapdragon 888 chipset paired with 8 to 16 gigs of fast LPDDR5 RAM and a 6000 mAh battery.